Hi, Lisa. It is episode 3 of Colony's Builder Spotlight. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Yeah, I was just thinking before we started recording this that we're actually halfway. For those who are watching this for the first time, I just wanted to give a little bit of context. Colony's Builder Spotlight is a YouTube series where we follow the journey of our community members building a DAO from scratch over a 3-month period. And we film one of these episodes where we meet every 2 weeks. So over the 3-month period, we'll do 6 episodes, and today is episode 3. So we're sort of halfway, and I'm really excited about where you are. And yeah, just lots to dive into. So we might as well get started. We usually kick off these meetings by just discussing the things you've been working on over the past couple of weeks. So maybe that's a good place to start. What have you been up to?
So I would like to say that our first episode was when I started. So even though this is episode 3, I would say we're about 1 month into, just to give myself like 2 extra weeks,
Sure.
1 month into the creation process. And the last 2 weeks, I have written the book and created a document so that the illustrator can start doing all the illustrations. So I have a few pages done in terms of content and illustration, but we haven't done layout, we haven't done coloring, but the goal is to, in this short amount of time, have something that works. It may not be perfect, it may not have everything. So it's mostly that. I've also been paying or rewarding contributors with our native token, which is the pick token, as well as making some decisions around what the product itself, the book itself, is going to be like. So I'll talk about the product decisions first, and then later we'll kind of walk through my first experience buying crypto. I bought some ETH. I tried to I learned about like the different chains, and I was trying to like transfer XDAI into ETH, and I'll tell you all about that. So that was an ordeal in itself. So
Nice.
Lots to catch up on. So last week we sort of talked about how I decided to make this a book for adults and de-scope the children's book aspect. But I later realized that when people, this isn't meant to be like a technical explanation or like a technical explanation made easy. This is really, I realized that our target audience were people who, for some reason, were either not interested in crypto and Web3. Usually the reason is because of, false perceptions due to the media or due to, what they have learned about. And the question that a lot of the people I talked to had was, why does this matter? Or why is this, more than just like a speculative or gambling, thing for rich people? I'm just like a regular person. Why should I care about this? And one thing that I realized is that what people care about is actually like, there's a story, like what motivates people and what means something to people is a story. So in that sense, I actually kind of went back and decided to, write a story about why, using like little characters, why, and sort of illustrating like why something like a cryptocurrency is needed, or to explain like why Bitcoin was invented in the first place through this like kind of fairy tale like little children's story. So in that sense, it's kind of gotten rescoped to be a children's story. But what I decided was that I would include a letter to the reader, to the adult reader. So to address, okay, if you're an adult reader that is learning about crypto for the first time, here's like some other information to supplement the story. Here are some links where you can go to learn more. Here's some like, the story is very positive about crypto, but there's also a lot of negative sides, a lot of things to be aware of. So here's like some stuff you should know about. And also like, okay, if you're an adult reader, but you're going to read this to your child, then hopefully that's somebody who is most likely already very involved in the community. So they themselves will be able to, answer questions from their children and kind of field that. So it's kind of gotten rescoped to having, like a broader audience. Because I think what I realized was that storytelling is really the it doesn't matter really what age you are. It's like the kind of the values behind a story and the emotional aspects is what makes something important to people.
Have you actually spoken to some more people during the last 2 weeks as well, or had you already done your research period and based your writing upon that, or was it sort of a co-evolution of research and writing at the same time?
It's kind of a co-evolution. One thing I definitely got a lot more value out of the people watching. So like the people who followed on Twitter. Also, if you're watching and you haven't claimed your PIC tokens, please, DM me on Twitter. And I've also emailed everybody who's filled out the form. I had a couple people tell me that they wanted it to be for children because they had kids. And that's kind of a challenge too, because I didn't really know how, I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of interaction with small children. I don't know how much stuff a child at 6 years old or 8 years old or whatever knows. So I sort of have to assume that they understood basic banking, just like how you could have a card and use the card to buy stuff and earn money and it goes to your bank account. And I'm hoping that if you are going to read this to your child, that's something that the adult wouldn't mind explaining, or their child already knows about. So maybe we'll down the line include like a little exercise worksheets for children, or like I'm amassing a list of discussion questions that you could have with your kids around baking and just to make it more interactive. So yeah, to answer your question, it's kind of a messy process.
But that was to be expected, right? I mean, you've never done this before, and you're sort of figuring it out as you go along, which is awesome. So just I'm sure I heard you say that you ended up buying your first cryptocurrency as well in the past 2 weeks. Is that right? Or had you already bought something? I love how you end up starting a DAO before you even buy any crypto. I love that.
I know. Technically my first crypto was my own, the native token for a PIC. And then, so basically I'll tell you what happened. And this, I think, this was very good because it made me realize in the storybook, I tell the story of a little cat who has a jam making business, and in her kingdom, the old king died. Wow, the timing actually with the queens. No, this is no shade on King Charles, but the new king, King Pidge, is a fat pigeon who is very greedy and decides that he needs like more stuff. So he's decided to tax all transactions at like 50% or something. Yeah, and it's crazy because this little cat and her friends, she's got a squirrel friend who makes spiced nuts. She's got a beaver friend who knits scarves, and they're just like home creators who have a stall in their village, and they're like, well, we can't. This is really hard for us. Without giving, I mean, the story is not that important. It's really about the crypto values. It kind of shows, why was Bitcoin created? Well, to become a peer-to-peer, digital cash system. How do you explain that to kids? And even when I explain it to adults, people don't really understand why cash is important. And it was through the story where the little cat is, she goes on a little journey, and then at first you have they try to do like a centralized alternative money system with and that doesn't work, because then that kind of shows like the decentralization, why that's important, single point of failure, and then just kind of like the values of crypto. Anyway, I kind of got sidetracked, but writing the story, I was like drinking my own Kool-Aid, and I very much believe in the sort of the values around why this is important. It wasn't until I was trying to buy Ethereum, and it was my first like real crypto that that other people also use, and not my own native token, that I was like this is really complicated. It's actually like very difficult. I've never tried so hard to give someone my money and have it take so long for so let me tell you the story. Basically what happened was I was trying to buy an NFT. I also bought my first NFT fairly recently. I joined these communities. It's been great. Like Web3 has been a great experience, very welcoming. But I was like, okay, I want to buy this other NFT. And the first one I was able to buy with my credit card. This other one needed Ethereum for some reason, just different platforms, I guess, or different rules. So I tried to buy it. It turns out that most credit card companies will not let you buy crypto. At least the ones that I have, most bank accounts, they would not let you buy crypto. I tried to connect it using ACH transfer to my bank. The MetaMask UI was just not working. Like, it would connect, but then there was no like next button. So I created a Coinbase wallet, and I was gonna wire them money, but it was gonna be like $10 on their end just for the wire fee, and then like another 25. And I only wanted like $40 worth of crypto, but I was gonna have to pay like $40 in fees. And I was like, so I tried PayPal, and then PayPal let me buy it. They wouldn't let me transfer the crypto out, so I had to resell it. And then I was like, okay, well, I get paid an XDAI, which I'm actually planning on using all of it to pay the illustrator. Hopefully it'll be enough. But I'm like, I'll just like, at least that's something that's on chain. Like, let me try to transfer it. God. So I was like, I learned that you have to change XDAI to DAI, and then from DAI to Ethereum. Also, it was the same day that the merge was happening. So gas fees were like, I learned about gas fees. Gas fees were like fluctuating like crazy. A lot of the other marketplaces where you can buy ETH were like, we're not trading ETH today because of the merge. And then I just decided to pay the $10 in gas fees just to see if it would work, and it did work. And then I was like, okay, finally I can change my DAI to ETH. And then MetaMask was like, oh, you can't because you have to pay gas fees in ETH. And I'm like, okay, well, this is really shitty because like I can't. I'm like, at this point, it's been like 3 days. I've been like actively trying to do this for 3 days. It only took me like 5 minutes to start a DAO on Colony. I would consider myself pretty good at troubleshooting. And especially because I do have like a software engineering background, I have like a little bit more experience, I think, like troubleshooting different things on my phone, whether that's going to Discord and asking for help or just clicking around, reading the docs. But this was tough. This was not something I hope it's not representative for people, but it kind of shows me that this is hard and it's not that as accessible as I might have wanted it to be.
Unfortunately, I think probably the biggest barrier to crypto adoption is that onboarding. The fact that people like yourself who are interested in buying some have to overcome this huge hurdle of whether it's your bank not allowing you to buy any, or whether there's a technical issue, or all of these other things that you just mentioned. And the fact that it's so hard just to buy crypto must put off 80% of people that even try, because like you just said, you are quite a technical person. You understand products and software quite well. So anyone who isn't on that level would probably just give up, and that's really, really scary, because it just proves that we've got so long to go still before we reach mass adoption, right?
That made me realize also that with the picture book, I think about distribution. I think it's going to be like a fiat currency type sale where we could sell through traditional things. On that note, distribution is not simple when it comes to books, especially not children's books. But first, so I think one thing that could happen, that's actually what I want to focus on the next 2 weeks, is start learning about different tokenomic structures, how I can, incentivize DAO members, etc. Where I can imagine a system where we do just have like a regular ebook type purchase link, and also maybe sell like an NFT or some sort of other thing that's Web3 that comes with, free access to the book, and or free access to any books that the DAO makes down the line. So I think those will be separate, so that if you're someone who just wants to read the book, or if this works out, if a school wants books or whatever, they can just buy it through traditional means. But if you're someone who's Web3 in the Web3 world and you want to be part of the DAO, then you can do it through more Web3 means. So that's kind of how I'm imagining it.
Yeah, of course, the last thing you want to do is spend 3 months spending so much effort and time creating this book and then not reaching the audience that you want to because of different distribution problems. So by all means, I think you're probably better off just to say, let's go the good old-fashioned Web 2.
With Web 2 book publishing, is actually the layout is very complex. And I ran into this issue when the illustrator asked me what dimensions the pages should be. And I was like, because so I was like, I don't know. I thought it was going to be an easy answer, but apparently children's book layout is so complicated that there are companies that you pay just to help you do it right. And I did a lot of sleuthing. I ended up just deciding to do it in like a 1-to-1 ratio for now, hoping that if it needs to be cropped, we can crop out like edges of the design, or like, you know, or maybe it'll be something where like the illustration's kind of in the middle of the page and then there's text and everything else is white. I don't know, because I'm kind of trying to plan it so that we can both do physical copies down the line as well as like a digital. So that's what makes this hard, because but apparently children's book layout is no joke.
Is there a first draft of it? Or
yes, the book is written. I might make slight adjustments, but now the illustrator is going in and drawing, like trying to draw all the things as fast as possible, and then I'll do layout. So apparently children's books are usually in groups of 4, and 32 is like the most, and it has something to do with like the printing. So 32 is like the most common, and that was kind of tough because I had to fit in both like introducing the problem, kind of the first solution. Also, my boyfriend is a screenwriter, so he helped me with like the story dynamics, or like, I don't know, in movies, or like at the right near the end, you think like everything's gone well, but then everything goes to shit, and then like you have to like, so like I incorporated that, and like it was like kind of a complex story. And I went to Barnes and Noble and I was looking at the children's books, and I was like, this is the book I wrote. It's quite a bit more complicated, I think, than your typical children's book. So hopefully people don't get too mad about that. But it's about, I did the best we could. But yeah, it's about 32 pages, and a lot happens because we have to introduce the problem and introduce, what's the problem with like conventional currency. And also in this kingdom, they used to use gold coins, but they got rid of gold coins because it was just too cumbersome and heavy and dangerous. So now they only use digital money. So, I have to kind of explain that. And it's like hard to explain that in a very short time. And then we have to explain how, this golden retriever, very trustworthy character, starts like an alternative system where they basically start like a little marketplace in their village theater, and he sits at the checkout, and since everybody trusts him, it works. But then he gets kidnapped by King Pidge. So I had to like kind of explain, what's the problem with like a trustworthy alternative digital system where like, with like early digital currencies where the government would try to shut it down, or it's like quite a complex children's story. But it was really hard. Once I started writing, I was like, okay, these concepts, like I thought money was like a simple concept. These are not simple concepts. So I'm hoping that I'm not expecting children to understand it 100%, but I'm kind of expecting that just to like hear a story like this, maybe parts of it will, they'll remember it, and it'll just be like a foundation for future things. And for adults, it's obviously not too complicated. So kind of trying to figure out something that works for both groups.
Well, I tell you, it sounds like a real cliffhanger all the way through. So I'm excited. The illustrator you said is a freelancer. She did some initial test drawings. Have you now committed to the same illustrator doing the whole book, and she's happy to work within your own timelines and everything else?
Yes. Yeah. And that's something that's tough too, because as I mentioned before, my illustrator is in Japan. She was recommended to me. I don't know anything about her. I don't know if she has an illustration job. All I know is her ability to do the work demonstrated by her test samples, which I feel like is very, kind of egalitarian in a weird way, because it's not about, what schools you went to or what company you work for, what's on your resume. It's really like, are you able to do this? Which I think is very like DAO as well. And but it's been tough though, because like emotionally tough, because a lot is riding on this, and I do not have enough time to devote 100% to this project. So I wrote the book and I put it in a spreadsheet, and I was going to, in my typical kind of micromanagement way, write down exactly what should be in each on each page. but I just didn't really have time to kind of figure that out. And I wrote down some of the really obvious ones, but I've just given her permission to draw what she thinks makes sense based on the narrative text, and kind of just hope that it works out.
Is she doing it one page and then you having to review it? You're going to sort of periodically check in to see how she's getting on?
Yes, I'm asking her to basically send me, well, so we're doing it in stages. She's just doing sketches now, because I also don't know if the budget will cover, and I can do some illustration work as well. In the worst case scenario, I'll take her sketches and clean them up, and we might not even add color, but if we have money at the end or time at the end, or if, like we come up with, that's something I want to work on next week, is coming up with some sort of like tokenomics structure, thinking about, should we do an NFT? Should we do I don't know, to try to, because if there's enough interest and we do start to raise funds, then it'll be easier for me to know, like, okay, I can pay her to do like the coloring and the whatever. But so yes, and then she's also going to invoice me every 10 hours so that I can kind of keep track of, if we're on schedule. And just based on our earlier conversations, I kind of worked it out so that it should work within budget, but you just never know. And I think it's a hard balance between trying to find out what you need to know and kind of keeping people on track, especially when working with freelancers or, people that are doing like your like contract workers, essentially. It's hard to find that balance between, letting them do their job, but also like, okay, making sure that things are on. And the plan is that she should hopefully have a draft of everything within 2 to 3 weeks, so that and also like as she's giving me these drafts, I can start to look at the layout and like put things together. But we don't have a clear timeline because this isn't like a super formal project. So I'm just kind of like playing it by ear and hoping that it all works out. And even if not everything gets finished, I think the book will be finished within the 3 months. But even if like I can't do everything I wanted with the DAO, with like, NFTs or more complex tokenomics, it's okay.
Your mission or your goal was always just to get that book done. It didn't have to be the best book. You just wanted a book that is written by yourself and illustrated, whether it's colored or black and white, it doesn't really matter. That's sort of your goal. And all of these additional revenue streams that you could potentially incorporate into the DAO is obviously something that you can consider down the line. But I'm really glad to see that you seem very focused, and that the book is completely written, and that the illustrator is on schedule. So have you had any major wins, or what would you sort of say have been the milestones across what you've done?
I think 2 things. One is just having a draft of the book finished, because I've done multiple drafts, and and to reflect on that, I see this with my boyfriend, who writes a lot, and with his writing partners, they're always kind of like editing drafts and trying to make it like, they're always changing things. And I've discussed this with him, where sometimes it seems to an outsider that you're just editing things just as a way to procrastinate, so that you don't have to like put something out there. And then when it came time for me, I actually wrote so many drafts of this book. I thought it was going to be done like last time we talked, and it's just because I kept changing my mind. And at some point I had to be like, you know what? There are a lot of things I think that's wrong with the book as it is. What does it mean for something to be done? It's actually not clear. You'd think it would be a clear thing, like, oh, I've written it and therefore it's done. But it's actually not. You actually have to just decide that, okay, I'm gonna be done with it for now, and maybe come back to it. Maybe I'll make adjustments when we're doing the layout, or if something doesn't make sense, or with feedback. But I think that was a major milestone, like the psychological decision to say, okay, I've done enough. This isn't perfect, but I've done enough. So that's one major milestone. And the other major milestone was, I think this is a good lead into me perhaps sharing my screen in a little bit and showing the creation of teams on the DAO. I don't know if you can see, but early supporters is where everything is happening right now, where I'm paying different early supporters their pick tokens for the stuff that they've contributed. And I've also created this team is going to be contributors so my illustrator, as far as I know, is not really, well versed with Web3, and just given my experience, how complicated it can be, I think it's best if I just pay her the way she wants to be paid, which is through like regular money, and it's already complex because of her being in Japan and currency. So I'm going to be paying myself in XDAI and it's going to match, all of her invoices. And I'm not even sure if we'll have enough XDAI for that, but then I'll just like fund the rest. But I'm going to have that done in this contributor team, because down the line, I'm expecting that there'll actually be people will be being paid directly through this platform, as opposed to like me being the go-between. I created this marketing / publishing team where I'm just expecting that that might be something where I might have contributors doing real work in getting paid in both the native token as well as just the stable coins. So that's another. I paid myself some native tokens. So I decided 1,000 pick tokens for every episode. Okay. I don't know what the pick tokens are even going to mean, so maybe I'll change that. But I've given myself 2,000 just because contributors get around anywhere from 50 to 500. So I thought that since I'm the one really doing all the work on this, it should be at least I should have at least as many as the people doing the filling out forms, and I had to move some pick to early supporters so that I can pay or reward people through that team. So overall, that was a big milestone because this is where it starts to become like a real DAO. And I just think it's so cool that I can reward people who are interested early on with something that could potentially be down the line, like it could be worth something. And it just makes me think about, in the startup world, there's so many, if you want to be like an angel investor or you want to be an early adopter, you kind of have to have a lot of money and you have to have like connections. And it's a system where if you're just a regular person, you could be an early adopter and you're an early user. You might be contributing a lot to the platform. You might be doing beta testing. You could be so very important, but there's just no way to really financially have any sort of ownership or rewards from that. And that's something that I think is very cool about this the native token concept and the Web3 concepts, because you can, whether or not this pick token is ever worth anything, it's at least like symbolic, and there is a chance that it could become worth something. And when you're an early contributor, like you get you share in those, like we all share in the rewards. So it's not just you do it because you think it's fun and you're like an early contributor, but you don't really get anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so great to see this in action. So your book is going well, and you've set up your DAO, you've structured it, and you're already paying some contributors for the form that they filled out. By the way, that is still open, is it? Can anyone still fill out the form or DM you on Twitter to provide value through research and get paid?
Yes. Yeah. I think I'm going to keep that open, because the next 2 weeks I'm going to be focusing on learning about different tokenomics. I'm going to be researching other NFT products. I don't know if we'll do an NFT, but I'm going to be asking people I know, this guy with a list of DAOs, perhaps, who has a list of DAOs. You should look that up if you're interested in, maybe getting listed in there, just to sort of see what other people are doing, what kind of structures work, and then following up more with the form. I've already gotten so much valuable info. And for example, one thing is that everyone is interested in potentially sharing in financial rewards of the DAO. And I think that's only right. So we just need to come up with the best way to do that so that it's fair. So for the next 2 weeks, I will still be doing forms, and I will probably start to be reaching out to people to do interviews as time allows, and hopefully come up with a plan for the DAO. And
Okay, that's so cool. And also, I think what's important is that, yes, the PIC token doesn't have any real value now, but the fact that someone helped you out and you rewarded them with a pick token. Yes, it doesn't have a monetary value right now, but you will always know the wallet addresses or the people that contributed and acted as an early supporter. So you could do an NFT drop like a year from now and say, I know exactly who helped me because those were the people that I paid. And it's not, you don't have to go through your emails to go and find the people. You can just do a drop to those early supporters and reward them retrospectively as well. You know, it doesn't have to be upfront. And also, I saw you had a little marketing domain or publishing. Speaking of marketing, have you thought more about what that looks like?
At the beginning, I thought I needed marketing help. I'm not sure I'll need marketing help anymore, but we'll see. We'll see. And the reason I say that is because, you know, I joined these NFT communities and they have been very welcoming and they're like kind of Web3. So I think through that, I'll at least be able to get, you know, some eyes on it. And I'm not really at a point right now where I'm like trying to scale up. So I'm not worried so much about like how many people, but I also, you know, just kind of randomly, I won a private reading with an astrologer who's very famous. I know you're like, wait, where's this going? Because I bought her NFT, and she was interested in posting about the book, possibly, depending on if she likes it or not. I don't, you know, no worries if she decides, but she gets like a lot of unique viewers on her website each month, something like a million or so. So, you know, I'm hoping that you know, my goal is to reach like maybe 100 people. So between like, you know, various things, I think that's probably reasonable. So right now I'm not like too worried about marketing, but I know that in the long run, marketing will be a concern. So there's a chance that there will be a opportunity to earn like actual stable coin through helping with marketing. But right now I'm just trying to get the book written and like coming up with a structure for how the DAO would work. So hopefully, you know, I haven't really even thought about the marketing yet too much. So we'll sort of see where that goes.
Next, I wanted to ask you about some of the problems or the struggles that you've had. Is there anything in particular?
I think on a personal level, I have been stressed. I have been stressed. I've been working on so many different things. I get very excited about trying new things. I usually just jump in without thinking too much about, you know, some people like to know how something will look from beginning to end before making the first step. Whereas I tend to make the first step and then I'm like, I can't go back now. A reflection that I have, or in something this is like a more personal thing that I've been trying to do is, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but trying to do as little as possible, or as little as, as little as possible, which is actually very, very hard. And I feel like I'm constantly stressed. I'm constantly like trying to manage everything. And I have like this project, I have my work projects, I have like a bunch of random other stuff. I have like 12 different Trello boards of like various things. And I have like these systems, and sometimes I don't use it and sometimes I do. And I think I'm just talking about this. I don't have like a solution or like a lesson for people, but just that like, yeah, there's like a lot going on and it can be really stressful. And I'm just trying my best to try to not overdo things. But I think that's, you know, maybe my biggest like personal struggle is balancing, you know, what stuff I should be doing, what stuff I can let go of doing.
You were talking about being stressed and having so much on and so much to do. Do you think it's slightly worse because you're a solo founder and you don't have a co-founder? And normally in traditional startups, founders have a co-founder so they can offload at least 50% of the work. Was that ever an option in your mind to maybe think of someone to start this with, or did you just sort of steamroll ahead and think I can myself? Yeah,
steamroll ahead is kind of part of my personality, so I think that's part of it. But it's funny because in my you know, non-DAO professional life, I'm also a solo founder, and I have a I do kind of have a co-founder. They're more like a cross between a co-founder and an angel investor, where I have, you know, like twice a week calls, and they help me with a lot of things. But in some ways, I am a solo founder because it's like my vision and that can be tough. So I don't have like a straight answer for people. I don't think it's something to be dogmatic about. Again, I think it's a positive and a negative thing. I do more of the work, but I can learn. You know, when I've worked on other things in the past, I've paid people to do certain jobs for me, and it's been very valuable because it helps me. It forces you to kind of think very clearly about what is the purpose of doing something. Like with the illustration, you know, instead of having like a co-founder to the DAO who's an illustrator, okay, I just had to write the book, and then I had to do the research of figuring out what the book would be about. But now she can come in and just like do the illustration. Whereas like if we were both co-founders of this, would she also be doing research? Would we be like arguing over, you know, what the, you know, that's actually a lot of additional time and energy as well. So it can be, I think it just depends on your situation. A lot of times though, I have to be honest, I wonder, oh, it would be so nice to just have someone to keep me accountable. Like every founder for anything goes through these like periods where you're like super hyped about what you're doing. And then you're just like, holy shit, what was I thinking? This is like a, you know, I'm like such an idiot. And then you, but this is horrible. And then you can go like, oh no, this isn't so bad. It's just like, this is a common, well-known phenomenon, like the roller coaster of this. And I think it would be nice to have like, you know, someone else on a maybe different pattern so that we can kind of balance each other out. I think if you're watching this and you don't have the right person, I think a lot of people think their first step is to find a co-founder because they're like, oh, I'm not a technical person. I need to find like a technical co-founder. That's actually the most common one. And that just maybe just give up on that because unless you know someone, because one, it usually results in people trying to just get free software engineering work and no one really wants that or likes that. And then two, maybe like go validate your idea. You don't need like technical stuff or pay someone to just do like your very minimally viable thing, could be a mock-up or whatever. And then down the line, maybe you can, you know, find like a co-founder type role or like a CTO type role. You can always hire for those things. And I've also seen people who are solo founders, once they do go through some round of institutional funding, they're able to essentially get like a co-founder role or like head of whatever role and actually give up very little equity. And at this point, they have a very clear sense of, you know, what their brand and what their mission is.
I've got a question. We're in the middle of a bear market, and I think a lot of Web3 projects are struggling, especially if because things were going quite well, sort of 9 months ago, even 8 months ago, things were going really well. We were at the hype of an NFT cycle, and I think any project that was selling NFTs at the time was doing really well. Communities were booming. Sort of everyone was riding the wave, and it all came crashing down, and a huge number of people have just left the crypto space. Those speculators that came in to make a quick buck on an NFT or on some random crypto coins, they all have lost a hell of a lot of money and have just left the space. And I think the people who have ended up staying are the real builders, the real users, and those who are sort of really passionate about what it is we're building. So how have you found building in a bear market? Has it even affected you at all, or how have you thought about that?
I don't know if it's affected me because, you know, I don't know, like we're pretty early. I can talk about like my philosophy of building in a bear market though, but yeah, like for PBDAO, we are just starting out. So I don't know, like maybe if I started this 9 months ago, I would have had like 20 Twitter followers as opposed to 10. But like who, you know, it's kind of, it doesn't really matter. And I think that goes to part of my philosophy towards building things where on the surface, I think people think, oh, it's like great to build something when the market's up, especially if you're trying to get funding for stuff, like people just throw money at you. You know, that's almost like it's almost like a trap. I think many cultures have this saying where things that appear to be good can actually be bad things, and things that appear to be bad things can actually be good things. And I think starting something in a bear market is one of those things that appears to be a bad thing, but is most likely a good thing. For why? Well, like number one, without the speculators in the market, whether that's like NFTs and Web3 or just like a regular sort of Web2 type startup, you're forced to make sure you're actually creating something that's of value to people. And it's trimming some of the dead weight from you know, a system, whether that's the startup world in general or NFTs. And so, and I think if you're building something during this time, you're less likely to just be able to coast by on having, the right buzzwords or getting in front of the right people or having like shiny marketing. You really need to have something of substance. And the bull market is going to come back. We're going to come back into some other cycle. And you actually want to be at a stage where you're ready to scale when that happens. So it's actually good to be building very early in the bear market, so that when like there's a lot of money flowing around, you're at a point where you're like, I know what I'm doing works because I've done the work to get to this point, and now I just need money to like reach more people or do it on a bigger scale, as opposed to. And if you're actually raising money in a bull market and you're just starting out, you might have a shit ton of money that you don't know how to spend. You might be wasting that on like a bunch of different things as opposed to being forced to work on your product. And then at the point where you're ready to scale, you might be now in a bull market where you don't have any money to scale. So I don't know. That's just my personal view. I might just be justifying, being in this situation, but I don't see it as a bad thing. And it's not going to last forever. And and also with Web3 and the crypto community, it's a process of evolution. So right now, at the early stage, there's always going to be speculators or people just coming in trying to make a quick buck. They're buying an NFT, selling an NFT. But if that's all crypto is ever going to be, then might as well just quit now. But I think most people believe there's something more. So this like bear market is going to force everybody who's in the space to start looking at things that create tangible value.
I think this is a perfect time for you to be building this because, well, for two reasons, really. I think had you started building this like 9 months ago at the top of the NFT cycle, you probably would have justified to yourself that the best way about going about this is to sell NFTs to fund the book. And I can almost guarantee you that you would have been swept along with the NFT craze, and you will have gone, I'm going to mint 100 NFTs and I'm going to sell them and I'm going to use that money to write the book. And that would have been a real issue, because now you would have had 100 NFT holders who you've got to deliver value to as part of your roadmap, if that had happened. Whereas now that pressure is gone. You haven't actually sold NFTs where any NFT holders are sort of looking at you to say, hey, we bought into this and now the floor price has dropped. What are you going to do about getting the floor price up again? You don't have any of that pressure. So I think that's a really good thing. And then I think secondly is the fact that you're now openly giving some tokens upfront to your early supporters. I think if this was during the crazy speculator stage, there were so many token mercenaries just going across all of the projects trying to get free tokens, and they will have set up loads of fake accounts just to fill out your form and try and get as many tokens as they could for not really providing any tangible value to yourself. And those people have been flushed out. I think it's clear that you are not being inundated by fake accounts just trying to harvest as many tokens as they can from you. So clearly the people that are actually filling out your forms and getting in touch, those are actual true supporters, aren't they? Yeah.
I think overall it's a positive. And what you said about getting kind of swept away with NFT, I think it's so true, because I think if there's an analogy in like this Web2 startup world where it's like trying to raise, people conflate getting VC funding with having something of value. It's like the institutionalized legitimacy of having raised money. And I think it's similar with like the institutionalized legitimacy, well, maybe not institutionalized, but structural legitimacy of having raised X amount of money or selling X number of NFTs for Y amount of ETH or whatever. All of those things are a distraction from what's truly valuable, which is building product which delivers value to users. And so many people get confused by that. And I think it's just natural and like human. I think it's human to want, the prestige and the whatever that comes with the very like tangible, practical thing of having money in your hands. I think it's just so natural that you want to go that route. So it can be such a blessing to be in an environment where it's not, the easiest thing to do, because then it really forces you to, it just reminds you that, okay, like, let's not do that and just focus on what really matters.
So really, if there's anyone out there thinking about starting right now, you've clearly made a case for it being the perfect time, and they should just get out there and give it a shot, and don't wait, because now is a very good time. Right. So usually towards the end of the episode, we just quickly run through what you're going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. You've already mentioned something about additional tokenomic sort of incentives or revenue streams. You can elaborate on that if you want, or are you sort of thinking of other things that you're going to be working on as well?
I'm mostly going to be overseeing the illustration and starting to look at layout. I have a friend who was a children's book publisher for a long time who's been on vacation. So I'm going to try to get some like specific information from them about like layout and, different publishing. So I don't know, that's a kind of like a side thing. My main thing is going to be, I'm going to be learning about different NFT projects that have been successful, different DAOs that have been successful, and just start thinking about different ways, like a Web3 way of the traditional economic. So what really interests me is the economic model changes. Yes, I do think communities are important. I think it's important for readers or members to be able to vote on things. But I think what really, I think I'm a very tangible, practical person in some ways. And for me as a customer, I'd want to know about, okay, like you talk a big talk to all these like DAO founders about ownership and decentralization, and that's great that I get to vote on things, but I kind of don't want to run your company for you, and I don't really give a shit about a lot of your internal crap. People are interested in a variety of things, but the one thing that's consistent is financial incentives for being early adopter, financial rewards for for being part of this, and that's what I think is the main difference between the economic models of consumer companies in Web 2 versus what could be possible and where the future potentially lies in Web 3. So that being said, I need to do more research into this and to think about it. I'm also thinking about different ways to do what would be conventional Web 2 companies in a Web 3 way beyond just publishing. The next 2 weeks will be more like a philosophical deep dive. So if anyone watching is also interested in these things or has like experience thinking about it, like please DM me. I'd love to chat, and of course, like do like native token rewards for that, or just have a conversation. I'm going to be researching this and starting to think about new ways, different ways to structure the economic model of what is essentially still a company.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you, because now that the writing is sort of finished, you can start focusing on the other exciting stuff, which is what I can see your eyes light up, and I can see your mind is just so excited about this possibility of doing things in a completely different way, and you're sort of spearheading this innovation. But that's clearly your passion, and I'm really excited that you're at that part of the journey now.
Yes, I'm really excited for it. And I'm excited, again, back to like the bear market thing. I'm excited because whatever like model, this is like the perfect time to like test out whether these models are of interest to people. It's a perfect time to validate whether or not something actually adds value to someone. So I'm excited to see, because I really think that it's very fascinating that we can take conventional economic structures and turn them around. And and it's almost like the third, like Web3 is one way to frame it, but it's also like capitalism, like V3, right? It's like capitalism has so many issues with it, but here's maybe a way that it both makes sense, like logically, because humans aren't really necessarily that logical, but we are kind of greedy. So like it's something that like makes where incentives and morality and ethics can kind of align. So I think there's a lot of potential for this.
I'm really excited to see where you are in a couple of weeks' time, now that you've have some more time to think about it. So again, you said that if anyone else is interested to have these types of discussions with you, are they best off just sending you a DM on Twitter?
Yes, I'm on Twitter now. I made my first tweet. I'm like learning Twitter. Maybe like 7 years too late, but I'm on Twitter now.
And if anyone else really resonates with this project, your mission, they've been following along, and they feel they've got some other types of skills that would be valuable to you, would you consider other types of contribution to the DAO if those skills aligned with what it is you need?
I would definitely. So I don't know what I need yet, but if you just want to get involved, definitely DM. We do have, I am willing to pay people with, you know, actual money outside of like native of the Pig token. I don't really know what's needed right now, but you know, every time we do this, please just get in contact, because sometimes like if you wait for people to like need a role, then that can be tough. But if you're like, hey, like I just have the skill, I'd love to contribute, please tell me, because then we can like try to find a way that can be, you know, helpful.
Okay, yeah, and it might just be a case of someone saying, hey, I'm actually in this other DAO, and I think what you're doing is quite well aligned with what they're doing, and I would love to just tell them more about you.
I would love that. And we can, I don't know like how to pay, I don't know like how much we should pay people for that, or with tokens, or with stablecoin, but totally open. And at this point, just a lot of things are not structured yet. So it would be very helpful to just hear from anyone who has any thoughts whatsoever. So please DM me.
Okay, cool stuff. Okay, awesome. We'll also put all of the links in the bottom of this video, so that people can get in touch with you, follow you on Twitter. Okay, Lisa, I think that is it. It's been another jam-packed episode. I'm really excited and super glad to see you're making really good progress. I love your tenacity. I love your creativity. I think you're doing a great job. It's always a pleasure talking to you on these episodes. I'll probably see you in a couple.
Okay, see you in a couple weeks.
Okay, Lisa, all the best. Okay, take care.
Bye.
Ciao, bye.